Welcome to the Daily Devotional Podcast with author, pastor, and speaker Zach Maldonado, a podcast about helping you know and enjoy Christ each day.
What is the will of God? I think many of us or all of us have asked that question at some point. I know I used to struggle with it all the time. What decision do I need to make? Where do I need to go? What do I need to do next? Whether it was college that I was thinking about attending or a place or a job or whatever. I used to struggle with this, and really what's so crazy is when you look at the Bible, it tells us what God's will is. And I love 1 Thessalonians 5. Paul just lays it out for us. And he tells us, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances. Notice it doesn't say give thanks for all circumstances. For this is the will of God in Christ. This is the will of God. And then when you look throughout the New Testament, we see other things about doing what is right and abstaining from evil things and essentially loving other people. But here is a core thing, rejoice. Rejoice means just to be glad, be thankful, understand what God has done for you, and then just live from that overflow. Just rejoice in the fact that God is rejoicing in you. Isn't that cool? Pray without ceasing. This doesn't mean we have to pray every single moment of every single day, but just continue praying as you go throughout your life. Continue talking with God. Isn't that cool? God's will, God's desire. God's will is not some secret step-by-step plan that, oh no, if we miss one step, we're completely out of God's will. No, God's will, maybe a better word is God's desire. What's God's desire for you? He wants you to pray. He wants you to rejoice. He wants you to give thanks. Why? Because when we're doing those things, we're taking our focus off of our circumstances and on what we're struggling with, and we're putting them back on God. And that's where He wants it. Because when our eyes are fixed on God, man, peace happens. We're grateful. We're thankful. We start thinking in new ways. We start seeing new perspective. And so God's will is not some mystery. God's will is pretty straightforward and simple. So yes, we're going to have difficult decisions in our life. So Zach, what do I do? Well, pray to God, ask for wisdom, talk to some trusted friends and family members, and ultimately you have freedom. God gives us a ton of freedom. So whether you want to go up to South Dakota and take a job, or maybe you want to go to Florida or Texas where I live, I would recommend Texas. But whatever the case may be, God has given you freedom. And here's the cool part. Since Christ is in you, whether you go to South Dakota and you're a coal miner, or whether you go to Florida and you're a real estate agent, God is still in you. Christ is still in you. Whether you choose the house on 1st Street or 2nd Street, Christ is still in you. So here's what I'm trying to say, that if God's will is for you to give thanks and pray, and God's will is for you to do what's right, and God's will is for you to love other people, essentially, well, you can do that anywhere. You can't thwart that. You can't ruin that with a decision that you make, because you can do that no matter where you live, no matter what house you're in, no matter what car you're driving, no matter what job you have, no matter what spouse you marry. You can do that no matter what. And that's the good news. God's will is straightforward and simple. He wants you to talk to Him. He wants you to trust in Him. He wants you to love other people. And He wants you to give thanks. Just be thankful for the finished work of Christ. God could do nothing else in my life, but I could still give thanks for the next 80 years just because of what Christ has done for us. So God's will is simple. You don't have to freak out if you have a difficult decision. Pray, ask for wisdom, but do what your heart's leading you to do. Ask trusted friends, and then just make a decision and go, knowing that Christ is always, always in you.
You've been listening to the Daily Devotional Podcast with Zach Maldonado. Join us each day for a new devotional that will help you know and enjoy Christ. For more great content from Zach, including his books, sermons, and more, check out ZachMaldonado.com.